It was evening on the island of Sodor, and Will the DB Class 82 tank engine was in his shed waiting for Susan when Sir Topham arrived. "Hello, sir," said Will. "Hello, Will. How are you doing this evening?" "I'm doing fine, sir. So what brings you here?" "Well, Will, I am here to tell you that I need you at Knapford Station while Percy is at the steamworks for a well-deserved overhaul." This made Will happy. He'd be able to see Rebecca again. "Oh, okay, sir. I'll do it." "That's a good engine," said Sir Topham happily. "Now, I made the arrangements at Tidmouth, so the engines know that you are coming." "Okay, sir. I'll see you tomorrow." And with that, Will puffed away to Tidmouth sheds. Meanwhile, at Tidmouth, James was complaining. "It's disgusting," he said. "I had to pull a goods train full of scrap to the smelter's yards. I swear, if I have to pull the scrap train again, I'm going to burst." "Oh, come now, James. Don't you do anything else except complain?" asked Nia. "No, he doesn't, Nia. He is always like this when he is pulling cars and not coaches," said Thomas. Then the engines heard a whistle. "Well, look who it is! Rebecca, it's your boyfriend," said James. "Yes, thank you, James, for that," said Rebecca, a little annoyed. "Hello, y'all," said Will as he was on the turntable. "Hello, Will," they all said. "So, how is everyone?" Will asked. "Doing well." "Well, pity can't be said the same thing for James," said Emily, who was looking at James, who was still cross. Then everyone heard another whistle, and there was Edward. "Hello, Edward," they all said. "Hello, everyone."
"What are you doing here, Edward?"
asked Gordon. "I just came to say hello to you all, 'cause I've really missed you all." "We've all missed you, too," said Thomas. "Well, it's getting late. I better get going," Edward said. But as Edward was about to leave, Will stopped him. "Hey, Edward." "Yes, Will? Could you tell us a story before you go?" And everyone agreed. Edward smiled and said, "Of course I can. As a matter of fact, I've got a story to tell you all, 'cause tomorrow is the anniversary of this engine's death." Everyone looked at Edward, a little scared, as he started his story. A long time ago, a big tender engine was returning home. It was a misty, moonlit night, but then she got lost and went down the wrong track and crashed at an old mine. She was never found again. Now, as every year, on the date of her accident, she runs again as a warning to others. When Edward finished, all of the engines shivered. "Wow, Edward, that was some story," said Rebecca. "Yeah, I hope I don't run into the ghost train," said Will, a little scared.
"Well, look at this. It seems that Will here is scared," said Gordon.
"Gordon, that is not funny. You should treat Will with more respect,"
said Nia. "Thanks, Nia, for that," said Will. Have a good night, everyone," said Edward, as he set off for his shed.
"Well, we better get to bed, you guys, as well,"
said Emily. "Yes, good night, everyone," said Thomas. And with that, everyone went to sleep. The next morning, all of the engines went to work. Will had to take some passengers to Ofsted Castle. As he was working, all he could think about was Edward's story. And every time he saw Gordon, he kept on teasing him about it, which made Will cross. And he wanted to pay Gordon out, but he didn't know how. That evening, Sir Topham came to see Will. "Will, I want you to take some freight cars to the old mine tonight." When Will heard this, he was scared, but he put on a smile and said, "Yes, sir." Meanwhile, Gordon was in a siding waiting for James and the express, and when he passed, Gordon, he was ready to go. But then there was trouble. "The switches are jammed," called the signalman. "I can't switch them back for Gordon. The workmen will have to mend them in the morning. It's too late now." When Gordon heard this, he was cross.
Oh, great. Now that means I'll have to stay here for the night.
"I'm afraid so, boy," said his driver. Just then, Will puffed up with his train. "Hello, Gordon. What are you doing in the siding?" Gordon explained about the switches being jammed. "I see. Sorry to hear that, Gordon. Well, I must be off. I'm taking these cars to the old mine." When Gordon heard this, he said,
Careful that the ghost engine doesn't get you, Will.
Will took no notice what Gordon said and just puffed away to the old mine. As Will made it to the mine, it was very dark. He looked all around him. Everything looked very spooky. As he uncoupled his cars, he was ready to leave until he had heard a strange wheezing sound.
It's the ghost!
Cried Will. "What ghost?" said his driver.
It's the ghost train that haunts this mine. She has come to warn me."
"Don't be silly. Me and the fireman will go and investigate." Soon, the driver and fireman returned quite soon. "The ghost train wants to meet you, Will," laughed his driver.
"Can she wait till morning?"
asked Will. "Ghosts don't work day shifts," said the fireman. Will bravely made his way behind the mine. "Well, bust my buffers," said Will. There, in front of him, was a big rusty tender engine. "This is your ghost, Will," said his fireman.
"Hello there. I'm Rachel,"
said the engine. "Hello, Rachel. I'm Will." Then Will had an idea on how to pay Gordon out for all his teasing.
"Hey, Rachel, could you help me with something?"
"Sure, Will."
"But what?"
Will told her about Gordon and Edward's story.
I see. Well, I think it's time to teach that big engine a lesson,"
said Rachel, who was smiling. "So you'll help me?" asked Will.
"But of course I will,"
said Rachel. With that, Will pulled Rachel out of the siding, and then his driver and fireman fixed up Rachel to make her look like a ghost train. Then, after they were done, Will went up behind Rachel and set off into the misty night. Gordon, meanwhile, was asleep on his siding and had no idea that Rachel and Will was approaching him. Gordon woke up with a start.
Help! Cried Gordon. I'm not going to open my eyes until my driver comes.
The next morning, the switches were mended, and Gordon puffed back to the junction. There, he saw James getting ready to leave with the express again. He looked at Gordon and was worried. "You okay, Gordon? You look like you've seen a ghost."
Yes, I'm fine, James. Now, if you excuse me, I've got work to do.
But for the rest of the day, Gordon kept on looking for the ghost train that he saw last night. All of the engines saw this and were worried about him. That evening at the sheds, the engines were getting ready for a good night's rest. Then Thomas spoke up. "Gordon, are you okay? You've been quiet all day. Are you all right?" But before Gordon could answer, they heard a whistle, and there was Will. "Hello, everyone."
"Hey, Will, where have you been?"
asked Nia. "Oh, I was at the steamworks with a new friend."
"A new friend? Who, Will?"
asked Rebecca. Just then, they heard an unfamiliar whistle. "Who's that?" Thomas asked. Will smiled. "Everyone, meet Rachel." After Will said that, Rachel puffed up to the sheds. Gordon screamed,
Yikes! It's the ghost train!
he cried as he backed up in the shed. This made Will and Rachel laugh. "It's all right, Gordon. Rachel's not a ghost." As Gordon came out of the sheds, Will explained what happened. "By the way, Gordon, how was your night out?" Gordon was a little cross, but then he looked down at his buffers and said to Will,
I'm sorry, Will. that I called you a scaredy engine. I shouldn't have done that. It was very rude of me. I guess I got what I deserved.
Will smiled at his friend. It's all right, Gordon. I forgive you. Then he looked at Rachel.
And Rachel, let me be the first agent to welcome you to Sodor.
Rachel smiled.
Oh, thank you, Gordon.
Nowadays, you will see Rachel working hard, pulling cars and coaches on the main line. And it took a while, but soon Gordon started to like her. And Rachel was happy to have a new friend in Gordon. And Gordon was happy to have a new friend in Rachel.